Hey guys, it's Hannah, and today I'm going to film a video where I read beginning passages of samples from books that you guys have requested for me to read so many times. So this is going to be a little bit of a series. I'm not sure how long I'll make this go on. It could be like a permanent series on my channel. But if you want to add your input, I do have a post on my Instagram. My Instagram is Hannah's Stories. It's like from 2 or 3 posts ago, where you can comment other books that you would like me to include in this series. Right now I have a pretty good list going on of books that you guys have really wanted me to read, and I grabbed samples of the ones that I could grab samples of. And so I'm just gonna read as much as possible and see where this takes me. So the books that I'm going to draw into today are The Law of Moses by Amy Harmon. That's the one I'm gonna do first. A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. That one's like crazy popular. I hear that everywhere. Before You Were Strangers by Renee Carlino, and Folsom by Taryn Fisher and, hold on, I'm trying to remember her writer name, Willow Astor. I'm going to start off with one that I actually did start reading this at a point and I never finished it, but that being said, it was a while ago, so let's give it a chance. So this one is called The Law of Moses by Amy Harmon. The first few words of every story are always the hardest to write. It's almost as if pulling them out, putting them on paper, commits you to seeing it all through. As if once you start, you are required to finish. And how do you finish when some things never end? This is the story of love, with no end, though it took me a while to get there. If I tell you right up front, right in the beginning, that I lost him, it will be easier for you to bear. You will know it's coming, and it will hurt. It will still make your chest ache and your stomach flip with dread, but you'll know, and you'll be able to prepare. And that's my gift to you. I wasn't given that same courtesy. I wasn't prepared. And after he was gone, it got worse, not better. The days grew harder, not easier. The regret was just as intense, the sorrow just as cutting, the endless stretch of days before me, days spent without him, just as hard. In truth, since I've decided that's all I have, I would gladly submit myself to anything else, anything but that is what was given to me, and I wasn't prepared. I can't tell you how it felt. How it still feels. I can't. Words feel cheap and ring hollow and turn everything I say, everything I feel, into a tawdry romance novel full of flowery phrases designed to elicit sympathetic tears and an immediate response. The response that has nothing to do with the reality and everything to do with an emotion that you can't set aside when you close the cover. Emotion has you wiping your eyes and chirping a happy hiccup, appreciating the fact that it was all just a story, and best of all, not your story. But this isn't like that, because it is my story, and I wasn't prepared. Granted, I don't remember that preface at all, and that was very good, and that makes me want to give this book a second chance. I have it in hardcover. All right, so A Court of Thorns and Roses. The forest had become a labyrinth of snow and ice. I've been monitoring the parameters of the thicket for an hour, and my vantage point in the crook of a tree branch had turned useless. The gusting wind blew thick flurries to sweep away my tracks, but buried along with them any signs of potential quarry. Hunger had brought me further from home than I had usually risked, but winter was the hard time. The animals had pulled in, going deeper into the woods than I could follow, leading me to pick off stragglers one by one, praying they'd last until spring. They hadn't. I wiped my numb fingers over my eyes, brushing away the flakes clinging to my lashes. Here there were no telltale trees stripped of bark to mark the deer's passing. They hadn't yet moved on. They would remain until the bark ran out, then travel north past the wolves' territory and perhaps into the fairy lands of Prithian? There were no mortals would dare go, not unless they had a death wish. Sorry if you can hear dogs barking or fireworks going off. I'm filming this on the 4th of July, which may not have been the best move. A shudder skittered down my spine at the thought, and I shoved it away, focusing on my surroundings, on the task at hand. That's all I could do. That's all I've been able to do for years. Focus on surviving the week, the day, the hour ahead. And now with the snow, I'd be lucky to spot anything, especially from my position up in the tree, scarcely able to see 15 feet ahead. Stifling a groan as my stiff limbs protested at the movement, I unstrung my bow before easing off the tree. The icy snow crunched under my fraying boots, and I ground my teeth. Low visibility, unnecessary noise. I was well on my way to yet another fruitless hunt. Only a few hours of daylight remained. If I didn't leave soon, I'd have to navigate my way home in the dark, and the warnings of the town hunters still rang fresh in my mind. Giant wolves were on the prowl, and in numbers, not to mention whispers of strange folk spotted in the area, tall and eerie and deadly. Anything but fairies. The hunters had beseeched our long-forgotten gods, and I had secretly prayed alongside them. In the 8 years we've been living in our village, 2 days' journey from the immortal border of Prithian, we'd been spared an attack, though traveling peddlers sometimes brought stories of distant border towns left in splinters and bones and ashes. These accounts, once rare enough to be dismissed by the village elders as hearsay, had in recent months become a commonplace whisperings on every market day. I had risked much in coming so far into the forest, but we'd finished our last loaf of bread yesterday, and the remainder of dried meat from the day before. Still, I would have rather spent another night with a hungry belly than found myself satisfying the appetite of a wolf or a fairy. Not that there was much of me to feast on. I've turned gangly by this time of year, and could count a good number on my ribs. Moving as nimbly and as quietly as I could between the trees, I pushed a hand against my hollow, aching stomach. I knew the expression that would be in my elder two sisters' faces when I returned to our cottage empty-handed yet again. After a few minutes of careful searching, I crouched in a cluster of snow-heavy brambles. Through the thorns, I had a half-decent view of a clearing and a small brook flowing through it. A few holes in the ice suggested it was frequently used. Hopefully, something would come by. Hopefully. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there. Let me know if you would like to have me read longer bits like this. The previous one I read, it was more short just because it had a preface already. This is just going straight into it. So yeah, just let me know your preference on how long you would like me to read of the books, or just kind of like do a feel for it. So I'm going to go ahead and do Folsom. This doesn't seem like my cup of tea, but gosh, I love them both, so I want to love it, you know? The clock in the lobby reads 7:20 a.m. I already have a hard-on, one that will last for most of my day. I'm surprisingly awake, considering my late night. I smell of aftershave and coffee, tangy like a hopeful morning. I grin at the people who stare at me and ride the elevator to the top floor. Apartment 922 is unlocked, and is supposed to be. I open the door and am greeted by Cecilia. Long-legged, thin as a rail, hair a deep amber. She's wearing nothing underneath a robe. Typical. Hi. Her walk is cat-like, rolling shoulders and nimble legs. She laces her hands behind her neck and stares up at me expectantly. Hi, I say. I'm waiting for my cue. Cues are important for accuracy. I missed you, she says. She burrows her nose into my neck, breathes me in. I'm glad you're home. Ah, there it is. Keyword, home. I wrap my arms around her waist and pull her against me. Biting on her bottom lip, she makes eye contact. I made dinner, she says. She releases me reluctantly, her eyes on my dick. I hate it when you work late. I follow her into the kitchen where a table is set with a candle in 2 place settings. Nothing like a romantic dinner at 7:30 in the morning. I stretch before sliding into my seat, and then I loosen my tie. That's always a nice touch. Tired husband loosening the tie after a long day. She smiles and then moves to the kitchen where there's a mess of pots and pans scattered across the sticky counters. I look out the window and she bangs around the silverware drawer, sliding open and closed, a clatter of metal as she grabs me a fork. The traffic on the street below thickens every 10 minutes. I'm glad I left early to get here. She returns with only 1 plate, piled high with food. Aren't you eating? I asked. She makes a show of placing it on the table, reaching around me so that her breast brushes against my arm. She wants me to think she's seducing me, but my body is ready. It's always forced to be ready. I ate, she admits. Don't be mad. How could I be mad with this spread? I glance down at my fish, the shrimp, the loaded baked potato leaking butter, and sour cream. This is not what she ate. If I lifted the lid to her trash can, there would be a half-eaten container of yogurt. I'd bet my life on it. She slides into the chair next to me, leaning her head on a hand. Still full from my own breakfast, I cut into the potato eagerly. Cecilia watches, her legs jiggling under the table. I close my eyes for effort when I swallow the first bite. She wriggles in her seat, pleased. I force down a few more bites, feeling sick before setting my fork down and pushing my chair back. You're not hungry? She pouts. I'd rather eat you, I say, and that does the trick. She's in my lap, moaning, spreading her thighs, and wrapping her legs around my waist. I don't want to get demonetized, so I'm going to kind of have to stop there. But, yep, that's erotica. I haven't read that in a very, very long time. So now we're going to move on to Before You Were Strangers by Renee Carlino. Also, would you guys like me to show you the covers of these books? Because I'm not sure with the way I have set up, I can do the inserts like I normally do. I'm trying new filming locations. Also, I know the lighting's not that great, so I hope you don't mind. I'm just trying a couple new things. Alright, so here we go. Do you still think of me? Matt. Life was passing me by at high speed as I sat back with my feet up, rejecting change, ignoring the world, shrugging off anything that threatened to have meaning or relevance. I categorically disagreed with all things current, despite the use of emojis, the word meta, and people who talked on their phones in line. Don't even get me started on gentrification. There were 21 Starbuckses within a 3-block radius of the building I worked in. Recording studios, film labs, and record stores were dying. If not already vacant corpses turned cupcake shops or blow-dry bars. They had stopped playing music videos on MTV, and they had banned smoking in bars. I didn't even recognize New York anymore. These are the things I pondered while sitting in my 4x4 cubicle at National Geographic. I hadn't felt National or Geographic since I had taken the desk job a few years back. I had come out of the field where I had seen everything, and I went into a hole where I saw nothing. I was in the middle of the city I loved, back in her arms again, but we were strangers. I was still hanging on to the past, and I didn't know why. Scott smacked me square on my back. Hey, buddy, Brooklyn for lunch? Why so far? I was sitting at my desk, fidgeting with the battery on my phone. There's a pizza place I want you to try, Chico's. You heard of it? We can get pizza on 5th. No, you have to try this place, Matt. It's phenomenal. What's phenomenal, the pizza or the staff? Since my divorce a few years ago, Scott, boss, friend, and eternal bachelor, had high hopes that I'd become his permanent wingman. It was impossible to talk him out of anything, especially when it involved women and food. You got me. But you have to see this girl. We'll call it a work meeting. I'll put it on the company card. Scott was the type who talked about women a lot, and about porn even more. He was severely out of touch with reality. I'm sure this qualifies as sexual harassment somewhere. He leaned across the top of the cubicle partition. He had a nice-looking face and was always smiling, but if you didn't see him for a week, you'd forget what he looked like. We'll take the subway. Hey guys, my ex-wife walked by, sipping a cup of coffee. I ignored her. Hey Liz, Scott said, and then stared at her as she walked away. He turned to me. Is it weird to work with her and Brad? I've always worked with her and Brad. Yeah, but she was your wife, and now she's Brad's wife. Honestly, I don't care. I stood up and grabbed my jacket. That's a good sign. I believe in you. That's how you know you're ready for some change. I often ignored these types of comments from Scott. I need to stop by Verizon and get a new battery, I said, waving my phone. What is that? A cell phone? Pretty sure you've seen one before. First of all, no one says cell phone anymore. Second, that's not a phone, that's an artifact. We should ship it to the Smithsonian and get you an iPhone. On the way out, we passed Kitty, the coffee cart girl. Hello, gentlemen. I smiled. Kitty? She blushed. Scott said nothing until we got to the elevator. You should tap that. She totally wants you. She's a child. She is a college graduate. I hired her. Not my type. Her name is Kitty. All right, now you're just being mean. He seemed minimally offended on Kitty's behalf. I'm fine. Why is it everyone's mission in life to set me up? I'm fine. Clock's a-tickin'. Guys don't have clocks. You're 36. That's young. Not compared to Kitty. The elevator doors opened and stepped into the giant lobby. A giant print of one of my photos ran the length of the wall. See that, Matt? That gets women wet. It's a picture of an Iraqi child holding an automatic weapon. The Pulitzer you got for it, genius, not the picture. He crossed his arms over his chest. What a good year for you. Yeah, it was. Professionally, anyway. I'm telling you, you have to use that to your advantage. You have a moderate amount of celebrity because of that photo. It's worked in my favor. How did it work in your favor exactly? I might have borrowed your name for a night once or twice. That's pretty good. So, I mean, this is fun. Like, I like the conversation of this. It flows really easily, which I remember from Renee's writing, and I don't know. I'm really digging this. Fireworks are really starting to go off, so I think I'm gonna call it a day for this video. But I hope that you guys did enjoy this style. Again, I hope the setup wasn't too weird for you. If you have like creative criticism for anything involving the video or the setup down below, totally welcome to hear it. But I guess all in all, I really do hope you guys enjoyed this. Sorry for about my month off. If you've made it this long, I'm not going to bore you with an even longer outro, but I just took some time off. I wasn't feeling super inspired to film, and so instead of forcing something, I just took the time, and you know, I came up with this idea, so I'm kind of glad I did. So I will talk to you guys later. Till next time. Bye.